All right,
Recording in progress.
All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, March 12th, 2025. All right, let's stall. Let's start with a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll begin with Chair Grumbine.
Present.
Vice Chair Uli.
Present.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dorden. Here. Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Present.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Present.
And Commissioner McClure.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, on to general business. All right, so we will go on to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So is there anyone that wants to talk about something not on this agenda?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I don't currently have any speaker slips, though we do have one attendant online. If they would like to speak during general public comment, they can raise their hand at this time. I'm not seeing any raised hands, and I will acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Kevin Boss and give it back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting for February 26, 2025.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second, under discussion, edits, et cetera.
Perfect.
All right, wonderful. We have Mary Poppins minutes, actually perfect in every way. All right. Let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll start with Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
And Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. We are on to item C, approval of minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting of February 26th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
All right, a motion and a second. We'll call, tie goes to Commissioner Butler, because
You can give it to
you got
him.
the last one. All right, under discussion or to staff, anything? This is just approval of the minutes that were already reviewed the last time.
Correct. So it would be, I think Commissioner Uli would be the best person,
yeah.
or Vice Chair Uli would be
I
the
don't
best
have
person.
anything to say.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. Let's have a roll call vote then.
Thank you. Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden.
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
And Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, on to item D, ratification of actions taken on the consent calendar for March 12th, 2025. So to staff?
If I can find it, thank you, Chair Grumbine. There were 2 items on consent today. Item A was 340 East Los Olivos Street, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted with the necessary findings. And item B was 429 East De La Vina Street, which received project design approval and final approval with the condition that the door color be more traditional, and to consult with the architectural historian on the appropriate color and then the appropriate findings. And that was all for consent.
All right, great. Okay, so we need a vote to ratify the calendar. Okay, who would like to make that vote?
So motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Drury seconding. All right, under discussion, any questions?
We just didn't like the door color. We sent it back in.
All right, tough.
Yeah.
All right, can we have a roll call vote for it?
Thank you. Commissioner Lenvik.
Yes.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli.
Yes.
And Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, moving right along to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Staff has a couple of brief announcements today. You received an email to this effect, but just wanted to go over the announcements as well. The HLC members only page has been discontinued, and the public HLC posting page will be the primary platform for commissioners to review meeting materials moving forward. Any confidential reports, such as archaeological reports, will be provided to HLC members via a Microsoft secure link registered to your on-file email address. So please just make sure with staff that your email address is up to date, and if you have any further questions about the discontinuation of the members only page or reviewing materials moving forward, feel free to contact the HLC Commission Secretary or myself. And then our second announcement is the project at 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard. It's the Hilton Hotel project. Will go to the Planning Commission for approval of the coastal development permit on April 10th. We will need an HLC member to attend and represent the HLC's comments from the May 10th, 2023 hearing, and I have those comments here for you if you need to take a look. The motion was made by Ensberg, seconded by Uli, and Chair Grumbine was absent, although if you did review the videotape, you can volunteer to represent the commission as well. But if we could get a volunteer to attend that hearing, that would be wonderful.
I'm sorry, what item was that again?
So the project is 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard. I've got the project description here if you'd like to review it, and it's going to the Planning Commission on April 10th.
Can you zoom in a bit there? Just so we
Absolutely.
can,
There's world and we can't see.
yeah. Exactly. Okay. So this one,
Oh, this is to the addition to the hotel.
oh, yes, yeah.
Where the tennis courts are?
Yeah.
Is that the correct one?
With the arches and with the plaster.
Yeah, we asked them
like
to
all
to paint the building another color. Didn't we tell them to do that?
black, maybe. Is this an attachment to the Hilton, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there's the existing Hilton that's on Cabrillo fronting the water, and there's, yeah. I did watch it, but I would be more comfortable with someone that was actually there participating.
April
As-
10th,
As
Yes.
our,
if I can get my calendar.
as our representative, so that
Sounds
I
like
could,
a butler's going to step up.
April 10th?
That's sorry.
I don't recall that I was enthusiastic about the project, and I don't know that I'd be a good advocate
Maybe you're the one we should send.
before the council on that
That's a
project.
Thursday.
Yes. It's a Thursday, and the PC meetings start at 1 p.m., although I don't know what time the item will start.
I think I could. Anybody else?
I am unable to that day.
I'll volunteer.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Commissioner Butler.
Thank you, Commissioner
Let me
Butler.
make a note of that.
All right, and those are the only announcements from staff at, oh, well, Nicole has an announcement as well.
I just wanted to remind the commissioners that tomorrow evening, we're having our neighborhood meeting in San Roque to introduce our historic context and historic resources survey project. And commissioners, oh my gosh, my brain is not functioning. The commissioners, Uli, Michael, Dory, and Keith are coming to the hearing. So, not hearing, meeting, sorry. And I'm sorry, but you can watch it online if you scan the QR code and go to the webpage. There's a webpage just for this project. There's a link to the Zoom that you can watch it from if you wanted to learn more about it. You all will be hearing about all the results at the end of the project here at the HLC meeting.
Great, thank you. All right. Other, oh, no worries. Other announcements, et cetera, future agenda items and appeals?
Chair Grumbine,
Yes.
I have to leave in about an hour,
Okay,
so we're going so quickly, I'm hoping we're,
yeah, 2:40.
get through it.
All right.
And then also, I wanted to bring up about paseos. And I'm specifically thinking about that paseo that we reviewed a long time ago, the one on Figueroa that was connected to the parking lot. And as the Historic Landmarks Commission, responsible for aesthetics in the El Pueblo Viejo, I feel like it would be very good for us to bring this up as a discussion about paseos, that one, and maybe perhaps others around the EPV. So I wanted to bring that up and see if we might be able to schedule a discussion about that and somehow figure out a way to improve and help and, make our paseos better.
Sure. So I think what might be so from the last time that we had a discussion about that paseo in particular with staff, It was, the discussion was basically, this is no longer the project, so it's not before you, so there's not a project to consider as the sort of total. I would say that perhaps you and I and Commissioner McClure, who have been part of the State Street, might reach out if HLC is feeling like this is a good idea, reach out to staff and see about coordinating a time to maybe even meet on site and try to help move this process along, because it is an eyesore, and see what we can do, as we have done with the State Street thing recently, as well as other things. If other HLC members see that as a decent use of sort of the subcommittee, if that might be a good way of handling it, as opposed to bringing it all of HLC without an actual project, and also setting up staff time and resources and all those other things, which the reality is we want to keep things moving, as opposed to, meet and talk about it when we don't have a project to actually review.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a great idea, but we also want to avoid having a lengthy conversation about it right now because
Yes.
it's not on the agenda.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But that way we can do the legwork and then
Yeah,
bring
and then
it,
bring
bring
it
it
to
to.
HLC as-
Yes,
yeah.
like we did for that 1200 block.
1200 block
Yeah.
paving thing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So Commissioner Howes and I were the HLC representatives for that meeting on site and so on. I'd like to be involved.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Why not?
Technically,
You can
well,
only have
so
three.
quorum.
As long as it's not a
four,
quorum.
four, well, unfortunately, right now, how does it work? 9 is our spots for total, but we have 8 members. Is a quorum 4?
I think,
Or is
per
it-
your original suggestion, the most appropriate course of action would be for the State Street Interim Working Group to maybe try to take on that initiative as part of their working group, and reach out to staff in that way, so that way we have an established working group and we're not worrying about quorum issues. Because I believe 4 is a quorum.
Yeah. So maybe Commissioner Drury, well, maybe Commissioner Drury.
I wouldn't serve on that.
Maybe $1,000.
So I think as part of that, as we're bringing it here, I think it'll be important, that discussion as well, with what was previously, and you can bring that, especially because Vice Chair House is not with us. Not that he's not with us anymore, but he's not with us. That'd be appreciated. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks all. Okay, so any other announcements, et cetera? All right. Let's go to subcommittee reports.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair Drury.
Yeah, we'll nominate.
Commissioner Drury.
there is a rumor that there's going to be an arts subcommittee for the Plaza de la Guerra design sometime in late April. So hopefully they're going to get close to pushing it into our purview. Thank you.
All right.
Nothing from designations.
All right. Anything else from anyone else for the subcommittees? All right.
good, right
all
on time.
We are on, yeah, nice. Right on time, 1:45. All right, so we are on to item 1, the new item, project design approval and final approval. This is a city right-of-way bicycle parking. And this is proposed new bicycle rack designs to replace existing racks in the public right-of-way within El Pueblo Viejo Landmarks District, consistent with the citywide rack replacement. So this is project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. Project last reviewed as a one-time pre-application design consultation on September 11th, 2024. So, welcome. And if you would give your name for the records, we can look at those minutes. And then I also had an ex parte conversations. I wanted to make a note on it as well. So, all right. So, yeah.
Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner with the city.
And I'm Sam Fertner, Mobility Coordinator with the Sustainability and Resilience Department.
All right, great. Thank you. Welcome. All right. So do we have anything from staff and aside from the minutes? And I'll read off the minutes afterwards.
No announcements from staff at this
Okay,
time.
great. All right. So so there was, let's see, a straw vote of how many commissioners supported the green versus the black, and it was a 5-2 And so that passed, and that was, I guess, that was the green winning. And then the commissioner comments were, the commission is accepting the proposed bike rack solution or proposed models. The commission prefers the Rambler wide in green, B121. Where bike racks are installed in brick, they should be installed below the level of the bricks, and the bricks should be cut tight to the posts. The commission prefers corrals to reduce the need for bike racks on State Street. The commission prefers fewer bike racks spaced further apart on State Street. The commission supports the idea of corrals located in the parking garages. The commission appreciates the excellent, thorough presentation of the bike racks. When existing hitching posts are replaced, they should be replaced in groups so there isn't a combination of different designs. All right, so with that, so from the ex parte conversations, after I watched the video, I reached out and wanted to put forth or ask for an alternate design that was more regular, like our metalwork, in terms of a more Spanish design. And staff did a great job of thoroughly pursuing it, and with a manufacturer that we've worked with before, that's reasonable in price, and they priced it out and did a number of things. So they went down a rabbit hole for me for it, and turns out my designs are more expensive by a lot.
That's
So even when I'm trying to be simple about it. So anyways, I appreciate all the work that staff has put into that, and yeah, it's very, I'm very thankful. I'll try to be at the next meeting so I can say stuff real time. Okay, all right.
Well, thank you for that, and it was a pleasure to work with you through that process. I'm, again, Sam Furtner, Mobility Coordinator with the Sustainability and Resilience Department, and joined at the table by Jessica Grant. And really, we're here this afternoon to receive project design approval and final design approval for some new bicycle rack designs that we feel will help us provide additional secure, convenient, and accessible bicycle parking in our public right-of-way. Yeah, I know. Hold on a second. There we are. That's a little better. No, you don't want to see my cheat notes, believe me. They're right here. So a little housekeeping before we get into it. We have two recommendations before you today. Firstly, that the Historic Landmarks Commission receive the planning application and presentation, and then grant project design and final approval for these proposed bicycle parking rack designs. These would be for use in the public right-of-way in the city of Santa Barbara within EPV. Staff's recommendation is that we receive approval for two rack designs, the Huntco Rambler and the Huntco Rambler Wide, in either dark green or black for installation in the public right-of-way. This would be in compliance with our pedestrian master plan, the bicycle master plan, and the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. So really, this project stemmed from a 2024 inventory, which was our first inventory citywide of existing bicycle parking. What we found is there's actually a lot of density of bike parking in the downtown core along State Street predominantly. Unsurprisingly, less density for bike parking in the more residential and neighborhood areas. And we were actually quite surprised to find how little bicycle parking is in our coastal area. We have over 800 racks throughout the city. We'll get a little bit more into detail on what's in EPV, but a lot of these racks are in poor to fair condition. Quite a few are ready for immediate replacement, and most of these racks are the hitching post design. So within EPV, we have 583 public bicycle parking racks. You can see there's a lot of density along State Street and in the downtown core. We currently feel like this is sufficient in that area, but you can see there's just an absolute dearth of bicycle parking along Cabrillo Boulevard. And actually in some of our most popular destinations and places people really like to ride bikes to. This is looking specifically at EPV, but you find this trend continuing the further you go up the mesa and to some of our other coastal access points. which leads to some challenges. Lack of sufficient public bicycle parking can both act as a barrier to access for residents and tourists who are trying to go to some of these places, and it can also impact some of our operations. The image on the right is actually the end of the Navy Pier down at the harbor on a weekend. And I'd like to point out that people are parking here because they want their bike to be visible and accessible. This is also a functional street. And we have large vehicles conducting multi-point turns in this area. So this can pose an impact to operations, as well as safety concerns, ADA access concerns, et cetera. So in the past, we've moved toward this idea of providing bicycle corrals, and these are larger groups of bike racks in the public right-of-way, frequently in street, because we don't have a lot of sidewalk area that's wide enough to accommodate a bicycle corral. We're seeing these work very well in the city. You can see just after this installation was put in, busy weekend down at Llama Dog. The corral is full, and in fact, there's overflow bike parking as well. Anecdotally speaking, our other corrals have seen an uptake in usage as well. More people seem to be riding bikes and locking them and looking for secure bike parking. So these have been working very well for larger groupings of bicycle parking. What's not working well is the standalone rack. And as we discussed at the previous meeting, our hitching post does a couple of things well. It's really good at holding up signs in the public right-of-way. It's not great for providing secure bicycle parking. We see a lot of bikes that fall over. The racks do not offer 2 points of contact, so this is a regular occurrence with hitching posts. A lot of them are in poor condition. The paint is chipping or non-existent. We see a lot of rust forming, and increasingly we're seeing a lot more theft from these racks. So our goal today is to get approval for a couple of rack designs that would allow us a little bit more flexibility. And what we're looking for is firstly a rack that is consistent with the city's own access and parking design standards. I'll cover more on this in a moment, but the hitching post is not compliant with our own access and parking design standards. Additionally, we're looking for a rack that offers enhanced security and a more seamless and intuitive user interface, something that's consistent and simple. It's identifiable by somebody as, hey, this is a bike rack, I can park my bike here. Something that meets industry best practices. This is guidance from the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Planners, as well as the League of American Cyclists. An option that is affordable and accessible, even for private development. And our hope is that all of these factors together will really help minimize clutter that we're seeing in the right-of-way, in accordance with the EPV design guidelines. So we last came before you, as Chair Grumbine mentioned, back in September of 2024. Generally, the consensus was support for the smaller footprint rack designs that we brought. We actually brought 3 designs at that meeting. Overwhelmingly, the discussion was, let's stick with the Rambler and the Rambler Wide. Again, the intent here is to give us a quiver of different rack designs that could be used for different installations. I would say that the overwhelming majority of racks could be replaced with a Rambler Wide rack. That being said, there are areas on the west side along Milpas. I actually just crossed a sidewalk pad today on my afternoon walk. It was a 6-foot concrete sidewalk pad that was parking adjacent and curb adjacent, and there was a bicycle post in the middle of it. That's a scenario where we would prefer to use a narrower footprint rack to ease ingress and egress from a vehicle that's parked in the street there into the sidewalk area. What we heard at this meeting, the design consultation, was preference for the green color, but also with the understanding that we do have black racks on the ground in the city, so we should match adjacent racks when we're replacing bicycle racks moving forward. Another important takeaway from this meeting was that the brick foundations and the concrete foundations along State Street do not look good and are not aesthetically pleasing. And so with this feedback, we worked with the Public Works engineering team to develop a new standard installation detail for both brick and concrete. And our approach now is little bit different from the last time we came. I know we had some options at that meeting, but the intent here is to provide a below-grade concrete foundation, and then we would wet set the racks into that concrete. The racks that I brought today are the same ones that I brought last meeting. They have a flange at the bottom. That would be used for concrete installations where we can just use fasteners right into the substrate. This would be used along State Street and anywhere we have brick substrate. So the rack is wet set, plumbed and leveled, and then we would do a thin layer of sand and cut in the brick around the vertical stanchions of the rack to get as tight as possible to that. So it should be a really clean aesthetic, and we feel confident that this is the best way to move forward. Some of the other feedback that we heard during the design consultation, as Chair Grumbine mentioned, were a preference for more bike corrals on State Street. And the reality with this is that we currently have a fairly high density of available bike parking, so we don't necessarily need to move towards this corral approach. Really, our intent right now is to focus on upgrading and replacing outdated or non-compliant racks in the public right-of-way. We don't anticipate the need to add more racks in the State Street corridor. And the reason I say this right now is that one of the benefits of these freestanding or standalone bike racks is that they're right in front of a destination. And so somebody parks, they want to go into a store, they want their bike to be there in line of sight, to know it's going to be there. It's a quick errand, they come out, grab it, and leave. So the idea of a corral, which maybe would force somebody to walk a little bit further, I think may result in more people locking to signposts and things right in front of their destination. Additionally, to accommodate the space and footprint of a bike corral, we would need to remove either ADA areas or loading zones in the 0-100 blocks along State Street. This would be an in-street corral. We do not have sufficient sidewalk widths on the 0-100 blocks adjacent to State to put a sidewalk-based bike corral in. And with the current State Street promenade configuration, those 0-100 loading zones are very important to businesses on State Street who can only access that until 10 o'clock in the morning. So very important to keep these open as much as possible. Other feedback from the consultation meeting, a desire for looking at the potential of more bicycle parking in city garages. And really the takeaway here is that vehicle parking structures were not designed for bicycle parking. Even just the approach from a busier thoroughfare into a parking structure, there's a gate arm. There's multiple types of vehicle-specific infrastructure that don't work well with bicycles. Additionally, this puts the bike even further out of a line of sight to a rider. And parking garages are sometimes dark, sometimes poorly attended. This is not necessarily a secure location for bike parking. And we see that the racks we have in garages right now are not seeing a lot of usage. And just as a reminder, these are two corrals that we have up off of Victoria Street next to the city parking lot.
Does that complete your presentation?
That's it. Yep. We're all done today. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just switched it over.
That's
so I can
okay.
try to figure out what's going on.
Did it go to sleep?
Well, I guess that's it.
It's still in presentation mode. We can, exit out of that. There you go.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
There we go.
Skipped a few slides here. Let me back up. So the takeaway on this slide is just that bicyclists do like to park close to their destination. These are two corrals we have in place, and a lot of the businesses are actually behind this image on the right where all the bicycles are parked. And I'd like to point out that the corral across the drive aisle here is completely empty. So people will use whatever is close to where they're going. It just tends to be how bicyclists work. So again, putting a rack in a garage, I don't anticipate we would see regular usage of that. Getting back to our access and parking design standards, it's important to point out here that we require developers who are required to put in bicycle parking to comply with these standards. That a bicycle parking rack shall support a bicycle in at least 2 places and prevent it from falling over, be securely anchored to the ground, resist cutting, rusting, bending, deformation, and be designed to prevent scratching of bicycles. Our current hitching posts do one of these things, which is they are securely anchored to the ground. So that's really our intent. Our kind of North Star today is to be in compliance with these and really help enhance access to better bicycle parking facilities. When we look at bicycle parking, we try to evaluate a location to ensure that we are going to have sufficient pedestrian through zones on city sidewalks. This is from our pedestrian master plan. As a reminder, the through zone is the open sidewalk area in between the furnishing zone, which is curb adjacent, and the frontage zone, which is building adjacent. And we like to give this as much space as we can right here. While we also need to account for potential vehicle overhang. Anytime a bus is approaching a curve, the front end of the bus comes well over the sidewalk area. Same thing when a car is parking perpendicularly to a curb, or when a car is parking parallel to a curb, being aware of that door zone and ensuring that we have enough space for somebody to exit their vehicle and get onto the sidewalk. So with these in mind, the overarching theme here is we need to maximize the sidewalk space for all users, but we also need to provide secure bike parking at key destinations for people that are using our bike infrastructure in the city. This is the Huntco Soul Rack. It's an HLC approved rack that we're using for bicycle corrals. It's in the dark green colorway. This sheen that you see on bike racks now tends to fade after a year or two in the sun, so they're not quite as glossy. But these are coated in a 8 to 10 millimeter thick thermoplastic coating, and they've been holding up really well in the city right-of-way, both at city facilities and public bicycle corrals, as well as private developments. These offer quite a bit more theft resistance than our traditional hitching post, and this is an off-the-shelf design. Our recommendation before you today is to approve 2 racks. They both have narrower footprints. This is the smaller version of the rack, which is the Huntco Rambler. It's about 14.5 inches wide. This is the flange-mounted version. You can see the wet set version there in the inset. And very similar to that is the Huntco Rambler Wide. I'd like to point out we're not recommending this colorway. We would move forward with black or green. We anticipate this would be the more commonly used rack throughout the city. And I'd just like to point out that there are a number of different manufacturers that make a very similar rack to this, which is another benefit moving forward as far as not building in dependency on one vendor. Huntco racks come in a number of different options. As I mentioned, we would pursue both the flange and in-ground or wet set concrete mount versions. And HLC direction has been to look at the black and the green colorways for this. These are the thermoplastic colors, so this is what we would ask your approval for. In the last 6 months or so, staff has really looked at the overall replacement effort that would be involved in replacing every bicycle hitching post throughout the city. And we're talking about a project that's well over $500,000 to do that citywide. It's a lot of money, but this is also a really critical part of our bicycle network. It enhances access to our bike infrastructure, and we continue to hear requests for more bike parking and also more secure bike parking. And that's one thing that you'll see a lot is hitching posts that are not being utilized. And if you look closer, you'll see that one of the rings has been clipped. And it's a real deterrent when you're going up to lock your multi-$1,000 e-bike to something that you look at it and there's evidence of theft on it. So I see a lot of people locking to signposts, and there's an empty hitch to grant project design and final approval for
Ring in progress.
bicycle parking rack designs for use in the right-of-way in EPV. And we are recommending 2 rack designs, the Huntco Rambler and the Rambler Wide in dark green or black for installation in the right-of-way in compliance with the PMP, the BMP, and the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. And with that, we are here. We'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you. All right. right. All right, well, so now if that completes your presentation, we will move on to public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We do have one public speaker slip, and that is for Barry Remus. If you'd like to come up and talk, you can do that at this time. And if there's anyone else that would like to speak on this item in person, they can fill out a speaker slip and bring it up to me.
All right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. My name is Barry Remus, and I'm with Move Santa Barbara County. We are the merged result of two former nonprofits, the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation and the Santa Barbara Bicycle Coalition, and we empower, advocate, and educate for those who walk, bike, and take public transit. And so we have had a chance to review what's presented before you from Mr. Furtner and Ms. Grant. And we do support what is proposed for you. And we do hope that you'll award, or excuse me, well, a funding award would be great too, but we do hope that you'll grant final project approval for this. We do tend to favor the Rambler Wide, which kind of coalesces with your previous feedback. And the reason that we do that is because, as Mr. Furtner presented on the screen, if you look at the hitching posts with just one small little pole, that does not provide adequate support for a bicycle of many different sizes. And as we know, these days with the trend towards more e-bike transportation, many of these bicycles are quite large, quite long, cargo bikes, et cetera, that really just require a lot more support to be able to securely park them. And as Mr. Furtner also mentioned, it's not very conducive, it's not very attractive from a security standpoint for a bicyclist. And keep in mind that bicyclists are all different types. Families with children, school children, younger folks going out throughout the day and the evening to want to be able to conveniently, very much conveniently, but also securely park their bikes with stable support. And so we feel that the wide version, while still giving you a compact footprint, provides that stability for various different sizes of bicycles. Because again, keep in mind that it could be small, it could be large, and they could take up a lot of space, regardless of the size of the rack. Once the bicycle is parked there, that takes up more space. And then also from the convenience standpoint, again, we do, per the climate action plan that the city did adopt, which is encouraging more people to opt for active transportation, walking or biking. If we want more people to bike in the city, then providing more of these convenient and secure types of racks will be more conducive to them wanting to do that. And that's why putting them in a parking garage isn't quite the most optimal place. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I don't currently have any other speaker slips, and now that Zoom is working again, we do still have one attendant online. If they would like to speak on this item, they can raise their hand. But I'm not seeing any raised hands, and I will acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Strongtown, Santa Barbara. With that, back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Uli.
Two questions. I think on one of the slides you indicated cost. I think, was that the cost just of the rack itself? It was $300 and some dollars?
That's correct. We did receive a quote now about 4 months ago from the supplier, and at that time it was $329 per rack before a quantity discount. And it's an order of magnitude difference the more racks that you purchase. So it goes down quite a bit as you add racks to an order, which we anticipate doing with permission, of course, and project design approval. We would do a bulk quantity discount. I'd also like to point out that our current hitching post costs about $350 to manufacture, and it's done in-house by our sole city welder.
Does the public, I assume the Public Works Department installs these devices, or?
That's a great question, Commissioner Uli, Vice Chair Uli, pardon me. In the past, we have done more one-off installations. I anticipate moving forward with larger scale grant-funded replacements. We would potentially go out to bid and hire somebody to do that work in the public right-of-way.
So the per cost would include installation if it's contracted?
That's correct.
Does the Public Works Department do an inter-fund request to be paid for their time and effort, or is it no cost?
as part of the standard installation detail, I worked with the engineering team to come up with a typical installation cost for both the concrete foundation version and the flange-mounted bike racks. And we built that into both of our grant applications.
Right.
And then just to add to that, if a contractor is installing the bike racks, we will also have staff oversight to make sure that it is being done per spec.
All right, thank you. Last question. Would you anticipate or want the flexibility to put corrals on State Street or the 0 block if it warranted it, rather than just saying, we don't think we'd do it?
Vice Chair Uli, that's a harder question. I think it depends on a lot of different variables. With the current unknown future of the State Street Promenade, I would not recommend such a permanent capital project at this time.
But would you want the future, the flexibility in your quiver of solutions to apply that solution if it was warranted, rather than just say no, and then you have to come back to us to ask us for it?
We do have the Huntco Soul Rack that has been approved for bike corral installations. So we have that as a tool right now. The question is whether that tool fits with the need of State Street.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
All right, Commissioner Drury?
if I may. So there's nothing intrinsically wrong with the Huntco Sol. So is there some?
Yeah, we would still like to keep that rack. We just didn't think it needed to be approved again when it's been approved in the past. So we just wanted
They're part of
to,
your quiver.
add a couple more to the selection.
Would you ever put those things in as solo installations?
It's a great question, Commissioner. The short answer is potentially, if we had a lot of sidewalk real estate. And places that I think of that could qualify for that are Cabrillo Boulevard. But this rack empty is 36 inches wide.
That is a
So
problem.
when you put it parallel to a curb face that might have curb face parking, even when there's not a bicycle, which is 6 feet long, more or less, parked at that rack, it's taking up 3 feet of sidewalk space, potentially in a door zone, which was really the vision behind getting some narrower racks approved.
I get it. Okay, thank you. And do you plan on having bicycle racks on Stearns Wharf and in the Funk Zone, or an increase? I'm down to Stearns Wharf quite a bit, and I see a lot of people on bicycles, motorized and otherwise. I think there's a dearth of bicycle racks on Stearns Wharf.
Commissioner Drury, there are a number of bicycle racks on the very end of Stearns Wharf, but we will be starting conversations and have started conversations with the waterfront department to find ideal, suitable locations, because they are seeing a lot of impacts down there right now.
Thank you very much.
And Commissioner Drury, just to add in the Funk Zone area, we are very limited on sidewalk space for bike parking. So we have been more successful in the bike corrals there. We were just notified of some safety grants that we received for some curb extensions in the Funk Zone along Yananali, which is really the main gateway street to the Funk Zone, at 3 intersections. With those curb extensions, we'll provide a little bit more real estate to add some additional parking in the future once those projects come online.
Thank you very much.
And quick question, how are these usually installed through EPV, and let's say not the waterfront? Would they be installed perpendicular to the curb or parallel to, typically?
Chair Grumbine, typically bike racks are installed so that the bicycle is parallel to the street, with the exception of areas where we have a lot of sidewalk real estate, and then you can go whatever orientation you choose. I'd like to point out that another challenge with the hitching post design is they have historically been installed incorrectly. And so it's really hard for new staff or with turnover of staff for somebody coming on board to understand which way the rings go and how you then park a bike there. If you're not a bike rider that's never used a hitching post before, it's not intuitive. So what we see is, in fact, even at some city facilities, we have rows of hitching posts that were installed incorrectly and will really only hold one bike per post. So the goal with something like this is it's very clear. We have a typical installation detail now, and it's a little bit more intuitive to the installer
Okay.
and the user.
So if we preferred the smaller ones, at least in certain areas, is there anything they're not, aside from, I get the idea of bikes are getting bigger and it's a little easier to install, and wanting less visual impact from our side of things. Is there anything you see that's wouldn't be able to be accommodated by the smaller, at least, or especially in the, not just EPV, but EPV and urban areas, not Cabrillo, for example. Like Cabrillo seems like, there are other people might have different opinions, but in my mind, the sort of more dense urban areas with strong architecture is where we'd want to lean towards something less large, let's say. What is there anything else that's being missing in terms of aside from ease of a little easier to use, but it still meets all the standards?
Sure, Grumbine, generally speaking, our desire was to move away from the width and real estate footprint that these Huntco sole racks take up and come up with a new standard bike rack for traditional sidewalks in the public right-of-way. Both of these rack designs offer considerably enhanced security and are more intuitive to use and are going to hold up better in the right-of-way.
So if we preferred, or as a general thing, like this, going with a smaller one, but still had the bigger one in your back pocket for cases that made sense, or for the waterfront or for other things, that would still check all the boxes that you need to check? Is that fair?
It would check the boxes. The only potential downside to that I see is that not many manufacturers make a similar smaller rack like that. That is very much a Huntco specialty. And I do appreciate building in a little bit more project longevity as far as being able to buy some of these racks 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That design on the left, the Rambler wide, it's called the staple rack, it's called a number of different things. Every manufacturer makes something like that. So I do appreciate that, but from a standpoint of usability, it won't support, to Barry Remis's point, a large cargo bike as well with that narrower footprint. So there is some trade-off.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question.
no, totally, that answered. Okay, other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have one more question. Is there any advantage to having the angle of the installation not perpendicular to the street, but angled?
Commissioner, that is a great question. After years of citing bike share and trying to figure out efficient use of sidewalk space for a 6-foot-long vehicle, we've done a lot of diagonal installations, and I think it can work very well. That being said, there's a lot of sensitivity about how somebody approaches a bike rack. And so what's more important to us is that we're ensuring there's a pedestrian through zone. We don't really want to encourage somebody riding on the sidewalk, so we want to be adjacent to a curb cut. And, red curb is always promising as long as there aren't visibility issues. There's a whole suite of parameters that we look for. I don't know if we have any diagonal installations currently, but we're in design for one right now. Again, trying to put a bike corral on the sidewalk is very challenging. And having additional flexibility in rack design will really help with that, because the footprint of the overall corral won't be quite as large as it is with these.
Thank you.
All right. any other
Chair,
last- yeah.
just a quick question to go back to costs. Where are these made?
These are made in Portland.
Okay. And looking ahead, do you currently anticipate an increase in price due to an increase in cost of materials?
That's a great question, and to be honest, I have not considered it, but I do anticipate it now that you mention it.
Thank
Yes.
All right. That was a downer.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
One-
Vice
one-
Chair Lee?
One follow-up question. Would you consider using the wider element here that you have for a corral installation?
I don't see why not.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just two questions. The budget is roughly 500,000. It's my understanding that's to replace what's existing. So when we're thinking about the volume, et cetera, it's really specifically, this program is to replace what's already the poles or whatever, correct? Okay. And then was the thermoplastic versus powder coating, was there any benefit one over the other? I'm very familiar with powder coating, but I'm not familiar with thermoplastic. You prefer the thermoplastic?
It's a great question. Yes, so the Huntco racks are actually powder coated first, and then they're dipped in the thermoplastic. And what that gives you is pretty robust rust resistance, even in marine environments. And then it also gives you an anti-scratch coating,
Okay, thank you.
which is beneficial, especially when you have more expensive bikes.
And Commissioner Butler, just to add for the cost estimate, yes, it was to mainly replace the hitching posts, but we did have, and Sam, remind me how many we had for new, just for in the coastal zone where we had deficiencies. So we did anticipate new ones in the coastal zone area.
That's correct. Thank you, Ms. Grant.
All right. Why don't we roll into
I had-
comments? Oh, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I just had two questions. One was, one of the pictures you showed had a moped parked in it. Are they allowed to park if you're on the sidewalk? Are mopeds and motorcycles and such allowed to, or is that just happen to be a picture where there was
Just happened to be
one?
there. Yeah, these do get utilized. Pardon me, let me exit the slideshow and see if I can find that image for you. It's not uncommon to see all kinds of wheeled devices locked to these, from electric vehicles to mopeds, scooters.
It was further down.
One more down, thank you.
It was down.
That one right there?
Yeah, that's one, and then there was another one, oh dear. There was another one too, but anyway, so. That'll work. So I was just wondering about that issue of, motorized versus, could you?
I would like to point out on this slide, since you brought it to my attention, Commissioner Ensberg, this Vespa is actually not locked to a rack. It's just utilizing the curb space, if you will, as a parking place.
The other one was more, it was a sidewalk with a, it was further down on your slides that was, obviously a pedestrian way that had an extension of concrete where the corral was.
Must have been an Italian tourist.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess it's not really that important to this discussion. It's just one of those things that happens that we should be aware of. The other was, okay, we know the vehicle, the bicycles are a certain size, 6 feet, you're saying. So I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding why you wouldn't just go with the bigger. Why is there benefit to the smaller one except for if there's no bikes parked there? If there's no bikes parked there, then you have more space available for for walking and other purposes, but ultimately you're trying to create for bicycles to park, so you really have to have that dotted line outside of it, and that's where it is. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out why the smaller one is of any advantage.
It's a great question, Commissioner Ensberg, and the takeaway is that because the hitching post has such a small footprint, it's around 8 inches, they were installed all over the city in areas that I would not currently install bike parking. That being said, a lot of those hitching posts get regular use. So when we replace those, I would like to be able to put something very close to where the hitching post we're removing was. And it's not uncommon. You can see it on State Street. You can see it along a number of other different thoroughfares throughout the city that hitching posts were installed in a row, frequently adjacent to curbside parking. So if we put a wider rack that's parallel to the curb instead of a freestanding single pole design, it can create almost a wall of bike racks that, empty or occupied, are still going to cause a little bit of challenges for somebody exiting or entering their vehicle. So that was the intent. That being said, The Rambler wide would certainly suffice, and I anticipate that we have some flexibility in what we reinstall when we find these locations. The narrower rack gives us a little bit more flexibility, but both racks are much smaller than the sole rack that we currently have approved.
And
So-
maybe what is the one called, the hitching post? Yeah, the hitching post. Maybe, perhaps some of those locations are not the best locations, and maybe some of them should be removed entirely and then relocated in more appropriate spots using I guess you want to have this quiver thing, but using maybe the bigger one if possible.
Yes, and I
like-
anticipate that may
or the
happen.
angled maybe is a good way
Yeah.
of addressing that too. Okay, thank you.
All
Those
right.
are what.
Yeah, any other questions before? Okay, let's roll into comments, and we'll try to wrap this up, because I know.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to underscore your thoughts on, I like the smallest one possible because of the visual clutter. And I think the sole is not appropriate in the EPV. It's just too modern, too big. And so I'm all about less is more. So I'd encourage you to think on those terms as you install them.
Other thoughts or additional thoughts? I agree with you on the sole thing. I know that when we approved it and it got installed in front of handlebars or wherever it was, right when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it was a little much. So I do think that the visual of the smaller is better in general. If it is it seems like it might be more okay is if there's a big gang of them and they're like at the beach or wherever. It's very actually intentionally like here's where you park your stuff, as opposed to all the other things that are around and in your way and everything else that it really adds the clutter to. Yeah.
Yes, I have a couple comments. Thank you.
Ransberg?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. And I probably, well, I like the wider one. I like the diagonal, exploration of that and having some other options of how you do it. I was thinking about, this work that we're doing on the 1200 block right now. That's a, pilot program that is going to eliminate and make more space available for uses like this. So perhaps that's another advantage that we could have, with more space on the sidewalk. I generally prefer not to be on the sidewalk, but if there's enough room for everyone, then perhaps it can work. I prefer the black. I think I was one of the only who, maybe there were only two of us that preferred the black.
And actually, let's have a little conversation about that, because I think the black versus green versus allowing maybe a preference with tying to whatever metalwork is near you as well, like taking that into consideration with these both options. And if there is a preference, which we had the vote last time, then maybe that's the default if there's not an obvious choice.
Yeah,
Like right next to it.
I just think that our, typically we have black wrought iron, I just feel like black is more invisible. It doesn't stand out like being a statement. So for me, just my one voice, I would prefer the black. And then finally, the install, and I know a number of the commissioners feel like it's really important for it to have the brick coming up to it. I don't feel that way. I feel like the best approach would be, instead of going to this expense of having to put in a whole big concrete thing and stick it in there, and then what if you want to change it? It's like really a big deal to take it out. I think it's better just to go straight, just put the flange on top, install it, you're done. I don't feel, and then if you want to remove it, you can repair the brick really easily, and I don't feel like it's necessary to go to that extent. I'm happy with the flange on top.
Now,
The point
quick
is you
question.
can't do that on brick.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify. So then you end up with a large strip of concrete, right?
Can't you do a deeper, was there
Or
some way?
would it end up with two posts
You'd
of
have to
concrete?
do a standoff bolt.
Well, then we should put them on the street, not on the sidewalk.
So
Then it's not a problem.
Because these
But actually, that's a good point of clarification. So we're saying if they're installed in the street, it's not, or even in the sidewalk, as concrete sidewalk, it's not a big deal. It's concrete. And even in the street, it's bolted too, and that's fine. It's only when it's installed in brick that then, which is basically only the sidewalk, brick sidewalk in State Street and around. Okay, great.
That's correct, and I just did want to weigh in here, forgive me, but in speaking with engineers that have been working on State Street for upwards of 30 years, through bolting on brick with a sand substrate below over uncompacted soil does not work. And everybody has said within 6 months, these racks will fall over. They get a lot of abuse too. People lean on them, bikes obviously. So the recommendation was absolutely to go with a sub-concrete footing.
Right, so I understand. I would just, again, I'd rather not see them on the sidewalks, but where they have to be, or then I guess we have to go this way.
Okay, sorry, remind me again, what was our vote from last time? I know it was 5-2, but it was for.
5-2 in favor of green.
Green won
okay.
last time.
And my,
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
yeah,
I vote black.
Mr. Chair,
yes. Commissioner Drury.
thank you. Isn't Malaga Green an approved EPV
Yeah,
color?
and I would say that probably most of the garbage cans, or some at least, like, we have a lot of.
Light posts.
Or green, or the Malaga green, and that's probably pretty close to it.
I
Although
wouldn't mind
technically,
seeing, I
I'm
wouldn't,
a little
well, I'll vote
colorblind.
when it comes time. Thank you.
Okay, so, sorry, what was the last thing you said, Commissioner Drury?
I said I'll vote when it comes time.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, okay, so, other thoughts, otherwise I'll try to summarize where we are.
Just a few,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
It seems to me that it would be smart of us to allow the department to have as much flexibility in how they solve the problem. I don't have a preference whether it's the small rack, the big rack, or the solo rack. You know, the solution should be driven by what needs to be solved, obviously. In the EPV, if the primary color is Malaga green, then the devices should be Malaga green. In other areas, if it's wrought iron or some other color or no color, then it can be black. I don't think we should get so fine a grain that we've got to tell them, you've got to do it this way, or, or the highway. And to the degree that gives them this quiver of solutions with the maximum flexibility to figure out how that Rubik cube fits, then okay, God bless, go do it. I'm not a bike rider, so I don't have a dog in the race, really. I don't care. But a lot of people do ride bikes, and so we should accommodate it.
Okay, other thoughts? Okay, so I guess one
Can I,
point.
excuse me,
yeah.
can
Commissioner Ezra.
just on the Malaga Green, is that Malaga Green?
Pretty close.
Well, it isn't. I think Malaga Green is much darker, almost black. It's a very dark green, so, and I don't, either way, I agree with what Commissioner Ulia says. We want to make this as easy as possible for you and to give you options, so that we're just trying to give you our feedback of various things of how we're thinking about. But yes, we want you to have a lot of flexibility of how to solve the problem. So, again, whether it's the Malaga green or whether it's the black, there is benefit to just having one color, because then when you're ordering, you aren't having 3 of this and 4 of that. You just do the one color everywhere. So I just throw that out there, and maybe I'm going to be the only vote, but I still like black.
I'm not saying I don't like black. It's just that, if we say you can only do black, then it will be some time before the fixtures in the landscape all get to be the same color. Because we're certainly not going to tear out the waste bins that are green now, or the whatever it is, that's street lights or whatever else, to make them all black. So, yeah.
Okay, so,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
It appears to me in the screen we have before us that the green in the lower left-hand quadrant there is a different green than the one that's in the upper areas. And they have a different number on it, B121. And I think that probably is the green that they're proposing, and it's the green which is probably closer to Malacca green as well.
That is correct.
I would agree.
All right. Okay, so I guess one point of clarity on all these things before I try to summarize is the size. So it seems like there's at least two options. Let's throw those out there and let's see if there's another one, we can do it. One is, as Vice Chair Hooley was saying, sort of you have your options, go and pick as you will and put them as you will, with various benefits in different ways. The other would be to say that we have a preference for one, but you still have the options, and so you still have the choice to make the selection, but know that HLC likes one thing versus another. That seems to be at least two options, and then I think that second option could be split into HLC could have a preference for the larger, or HLC could have a preference for the smaller. And then at least there's a knowledge of what is preferred. It seems like those are all the options. There's another option of saying only one or the other, but I don't think anyone has said anything like that. Only the small. Okay. Only the small one. Okay. That's fair. That's another.
I was going to chime in and say I agree with Commissioner McClure, but I don't now. Because he preferred the small one, but he only wants the small one. So
Yeah.
you lost me there.
Okay, so why don't we do a straw poll vote first, and then we might have to have the real vote down. So I guess the first option is just leave it up to them. Either one is fine. The next option is having a preference. Let's just do that first. So as a division.
Does it include the round one?
All three of the
All three?
options.
Well, the round one's not before us. It already has
already
been before
Okay,
us. I don't
okay.
want to relitigate anything, although we're not litigating. Not yet.
Not yet.
All right. So we'll say, let's start with that. Let's just say, do we want to just leave it up to them, or do we want to at least give a preference? And with that.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep, well,
first question is, who wants to just leave it up to them? 1, 2, 3. Oh, we got a majority. Okay. It's down to the three of us who want to.
I agreed with you that we
recommend.
should have a preference, but allow the flexibility.
Okay. All right, well, that's it. It makes it easy. So let me try summarizing the comments and see if we can have a motion. Okay, so one is, actually I have one more question. On the diagonal discussion, my thought is leaving it up to them as well for that, and then they can, is everyone in general okay with that? Because there's all.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so in terms of position on the street and, diagonal versus orthogonal, those things, the commission feels that is in good hands with transportation and with the city, that we.
Pardon my interruption, Chair Grumbine. If you could just clarify that first comment.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, okay, so with regards to the positioning of the bike rack on the sidewalk, whether it's orthogonal or diagonal, the commission feels, or parallel, the commission is content with the staff making that decision for the install. For the color, the commission is comfortable with either green or black as proposed. And was there any other?
I would just be,
Limitation.
Mr. Chair, I would be specific that it's black H101 or green B121.
Sounds good. Okay, great. And that for the install of the posts, or not posts, the bike racks within brickwork, for it to be installed per their design. Their design is acceptable their design as proposed is acceptable. And then any other notes or things that we need to weigh in on?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm not sure that I agree that we should leave it up to them on the color. How many buildings in Santa Barbara do we let the architect decide on whether or not he wants to have a green trim or black trim. We don't do that. And I think that consistency throughout the city with regard to green is more important than allowing them to decide with a new director, a new whatever down the road, that we're going to buy all black. I don't believe that's where we want to go. I think we should say green is good. The B121 is good, and let's go with it.
Okay, under discussion on that one. for
Yeah, I
everyone.
tend to agree because if we're talking about lack or trying to keep visual clutter to a minimum, then having two colors would be counter to that. So one would be better.
Actually, I'd ask a question then about it, because the hitching posts as currently are they all one color? They are okay.
They're very faded green currently.
Almost black.
More of a rust patina.
Okay, so they're meant to, and in general, most of the metal work of at least EPV is the Malaga green. Okay, so so then in general, it'll match a lot more, or if not nearly all, if we go Malaga green. Okay.
An observation, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're here because this involves something in EPV or in historic districts. But you are also trying to develop a policy and plan that would cover the whole city, whether it's in the EPV or outside. So therefore, flexibility allows you to accommodate special needs of EPV and still have a policy citywide. Okay.
That's correct, Commissioner Jordan.
So we can, to play on that, we can say for the EPV, we would like the green, and that's okay? That gives you enough? Okay.
Chair Grobine, I wouldn't have a problem with this at all if this green was the same green, but it's not. So just for the record, I think we are doing the right thing to allow them to have the choice. They have these two colors that they have stated, so it's not like we're leaving it open-ended. We're saying this one or this one. And I just have a, I don't think it's going to look good because it's not Malaga green. It is brighter than that.
Is
So
that the green that it actually is,
that's okay.
right there?
But it fades.
Yeah.
So
okay.
anyway, just for the record, but if that's the pleasure of the
I
board.
guess one more thing we can do, which we used to do back in the old days when people brought samples in real life, and like they do now, is we should have a Malaga green trash can right out there. I think so.
Just haul it out.
So why don't we have 3 members go out there and take a look at it with it? It's literally like 10 yards, like 30 feet away. We can end this conversation in terms of what
It's
what
going to
people
take
feel
3
like.
people to carry that because it's heavy.
All right, so want to take a little recess, 5-minute recess?
I think we should.
Yeah.
We're debating something here that we're going to, 99% of the people are going to walk by it and not know the difference.
But it's the 1% that we care about.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't. We care about
the 1%.
we care about,
We're gonna see the color.
we care about using our back feet to paw the grass afterwards.
Mr. Chair, are we officially on a recess right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and then. come back to order? Yeah. All right, there we are.
Nice.
All right, are we live? Okay, great. All right, calling back to order Historic Landmarks Commission, March 12th. All right, so now that those who've wanted to see the color have seen the color next to the Malaga green garbage can. All right, so under discussion about the green, so go all green as if the vote had been before, green and black per this request, or something else. What is everyone feeling?
Personally, I'm comfortable with green B121 we could put the burden on the city to have them custom painted, of course. And then they wouldn't be custom painted because they would pick the black option, which is standard. And so, okay, that was a wasted effort. The green, while I agree that the Malaga green is blacker than the green in question, this green is going to change color in the sunlight and mute itself. It's not going to stand out as much as it does in the sample that's sitting next to us. I don't have a problem with it.
All right, others?
Nope,
I agree with
Commissioner Uli.
Mr. Uli.
Okay, any other final comments? Now that everyone's, who's wanted to see it?
What he said.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then I'm hearing as well to stick with our original thing, which is go green B121, but originally in that we had said and a black H101. Are you saying just go?
No, I think we can say within EPV, it should be B121.
Okay,
And as Commissioner Dordan pointed out, the rest of the city is up to somebody else, and they may very well be black or green.
Okay.
Who's to say?
So, all right, so the clarity is, we're going to strike the other one from the record and say for the color, it's B121 green as the approved for EPV. Okay?
And then,
And can we say, at least one commissioner disagreed with that?
Yes, we can say that, too.
You could also vote no, and that would be on the.
Well, I don't want to vote no on everything. I'm in
So
agreement
just
with
say the
everything,
majority of
just
the
that.
commission.
Okay, pardon my interruption through the chair to the rest of the commission. We can't have more interruptions. We're doing motion comments right now, so this is all being captured as part
Okay,
of the record.
so
So I just
I-
want to make sure we're keeping it as
Great.
clean and organized as possible.
Thank you.
So what I had captured was that the commission is revising or striking the comment, the commission is comfortable with either green B121 or black H101, and revising the comment to be, the commission prefers or would like to see green B121 in EPV and the black H101 outside of EPV. Is that correct?
No, we'll drop the latter part of that. So
Okay.
we're not going to comment on outside of EPV. We're just going to say in EPV, we want green 121, the majority of the commission. That way it'll include,
Gotcha.
it implies that there wasn't a unanimous.
Thank you.
Great. And then, all right, and then we talked about the install, the size preference. So that was open to staff in terms of what they select, with no direction from HLC. All right, any other comments that we want to capture in this? Okay, so those are the comments, and then I would look for a motion for approval, project design approval, and final approval if you're comfortable.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jordan, second by Vice Chair Uli. Under discussion, any other discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to make the comment that the presentation was thoughtful and thorough, and it demonstrated to me at least that the city staff was sensitive to different situations, and that persuades me to support the motion I just made.
All right, sounds good.
My comment, Mr. Chair, is the project compatibility findings. It's challenging because this really is a city right-of-way program across the entire city. How are we to characterize the project compatibility findings when we don't know exactly where each of these locations are in order to comment about their compatibility to adjacent resources, et cetera?
We could say they won't block the mountain view.
Well, I
Unless
think
you're
that,
lying on
I
the
think that's
sidewalk.
pretty clear. So
Well,
I don't know, is there advice from staff about,
Through the chair to the rest of the commission, whoever makes the findings, you can adjust them to be applicable to this project. There are some that aren't going to be applicable, so for that, you might say, like size, mass, bulk, height, and scale is not necessarily applicable for compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood. I think because your purview is over EPV in particular, and that's where you're making this determination, I think you could comment on how the project fits in with EPV guidelines or why it's appropriate to the architectural character of the city and that neighborhood in particular. So you can adjust these guidelines to match this project.
all right,
right.
the motion maker will have
Should
to,
we take a crack, should we take a crack at this? Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, the design of the project is consistent with design guidelines applicable to the location of the project, both within the EPV and outside of the EPV. The design of the project is compatible with desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are a distinctive part of Santa Barbara and of neighborhoods both within the EPV and beyond. The bicycle racks have a size, mass, bulk, height, and scale which is appropriate for street furniture in its location.
At least the smaller ones.
Okay, so
asterisk.
keep going.
Strike that from the record.
The design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent federal, state, and city landmarks and other nearby designated historic resources, including city structures and merit sites, blah, blah, blah. The design of the project does not impede public views of the oceans and the mountains. And the project is, can I say, sensitive to the appropriate amount of open space and landscaping in locations both in the EPV and beyond. Does that work?
All right. So there's the motion, and seconder
I certainly
agree with that. All right. And then under discussion, any other discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll begin with Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good job. Congratulations. All right. We are on to item 2. This is a continued item, project design approval and final approval for 2201 Laguna Street. This is designated a city, state, and national landmark. The mission was constructed in 1786, 1815, and 1925 by Father Antonio Ripoll and Jose Antonio Ramirez in the Spanish colonial style. Proposed to construct an ADA and building code compliant access ramp to the main doors. Project includes a new tile platform and new steps atop the existing historic steps, landscaping, and ADA access way. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings and minor alteration findings are required. Project was last reviewed on October 23rd, 2024. All right. So welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Fred Sweeney, project architect with 196.
Hi, this is Ruchita. I'm working on the project along with Fred Sweeney. Thank you.
And I'm Dan Lackey, pastor of the Mission Church.
Welcome. All right. So, going to staff, we can go through the meeting minutes and then any other further comments, and then we can go from there.
Thank you so much, Chair Grumbine. No announcements from staff at this time, but the motion from the last time this project was reviewed was to continue indefinitely with the following comments. One, the commission is concerned about the aesthetic impacts of lighting and signage that accompany the parking space. The commission urges the applicant to find an aesthetically acceptable solution. Two, the commission understands how important this building is. For that reason, items that the commission may not be concerned about otherwise are of concern because of the importance of the old Mission Santa Barbara and their proximity to the facade of the mission. The motion was made by Ensberg, seconded by Jordan. Commissioners Grumbine, Drury, Uli, and McClure were absent. We should probably do a little bit of a quorum check. Did Commissioners Grumbine, Drury, Uli, and McClure all review the videotape from the last hearing?
I did.
I did.
All right, so Commissioner McClure, you will only be able to ask questions. You will not be able to comment or vote on the motion, but that being said, we still have quorum and we'll be able to proceed with the hearing.
With so many people absent in the last action, did you have a quorum to even?
We did. It looks like we did have
Like
5
half the
members
group was
that were.
gone.
We've got a big commission, which we'd like to maintain. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so to the applicant, you'll have 15 minutes to present. Oh, sorry, I've got to read, oh, no, we did it, we did. So if you'll have 15 minutes to present, please make sure to answer the points raised before.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are going to, since we're requesting project design approval and final approval, we'll go sheet by sheet, just because I assume you have to see all the sheets. In response to the lighting questions, we will address that as we go through the sheets. For those of you who were here last time, our proposal was to eliminate the the preferred handicap parking spaces, and so we had presented a set of drawings that showed those removed. However, staff indicated that then required a re-review and additional time to look at the project without parking spaces. And so we've now come back with basically the same design, so there isn't really many changes to what you have looked before, all the previous appearances before the body, but we'll go through sheet by sheet. So this is the front cover showing the main project. This is a rendering of what we hope will be the ramp view. One little mistake on this drawing is that what appears to be a curb there doesn't exist. That's just paving as it exists today. Next sheet, please. Oops, got to go the other way. Sorry. This sheet is put in here because we had to go find water meters, which took time to make appointments with appropriate staff to go out and look at the 14 acres. Next slide, please. Next slide. These are all existing survey. This is Calvale deal with it during construction, the required materials to be placed to make sure water doesn't leave the site, et cetera. This is landscaping plan. Mr. Cunningham is here today as the landscape architect. If you have any questions. The red notes are, apparently there was some concern about whether we watered the tree or didn't water the tree. So we had to wait for a letter from an arborist that said water the tree and protect the tree, which we had notes previously, but they had difficulty finding them, so they're outlined in red. Next slide, please. Details for landscaping. Next slide, please. Irrigation. Oh, irrigation, we were told by the one change from the previous meeting, same irrigation plan, but we were told by Water Resources that they couldn't permanently attach the irrigation system to the hose bib that's existing. We had to use a hose. Not sure why that is, but that's their requirements. Next slide, please. These are just details. So this is demolition. Next slide, please. Site plan. So this is, I think, what we shared with you last time, eliminating all the handicap parking spaces, and the darker area is just the grading that has to be done and resurfacing asphalt to get the bottom of the ramp to land properly and to meet the ADA requirements. Next slide, please. That's more closer detail. We did have one change. The width, the dimension of that horizontal ramp had to increase to 60 inches versus I think we had it at 48 inches, so we had to move things around a little bit. Next slide, please. These details you've already seen. Next slide, please. These were also shared last time. Going back just one, please. Thank you. The bottom detail is just a finer drawing of being able to match the Tepesque stone with the stone that's on the face. We've now found a house that Hope Ranch or Montecito somewhere that was being torn down that had the exact Tepesque stone because we can't get it out of the quarry up in Upper Santa Maria River Valley. So but the Mission has bought 20 pallets of this stone that's already on site, and I've worked with the mason that'll be doing the work to indicate that essentially, as we've all agreed from the very beginning, this stone pattern needs to bleed right into the stone pattern of the towers so that hopefully, in essence, this handicap ramp disappears. Next slide, please. These are just all the details of replacing and readjusting the historic steps. Next slide, please. Structural details for the wall and the railings. Next slide, please. Additional detailing. Next slide, please. This is the rail. We had a couple of comments about the twist in the end of the railings to make sure that they met ADA code and that also reflected the railings that are there today, which will all be wrought iron, and we're retaining as much as we can of the existing railings. Next slide, please. More details. Next slide, please. This is the lighting pattern so that we could assure ourselves that the lighting that we're proposing will meet the ADA requirements of being able to access the ramp in dark hours. So this is the study done by our electrical engineer consultant to make sure we had the right foot candles. Next slide, please. Details of electrical fixtures. Details. Next slide, please. More details. These are outlets. That's the site plan for the electrical work. Next slide, please. Is it moving? It should be the last page. Okay. No, you're missing a page. Where is the page that has the board? I think we require to have a board, but it's on the drawings. So maybe while I look back, find it. It's there. I looked at it. There's a drawing with the colors and the patterns and materials, and it's basically that slide right there. Okay. So it should be in the drawings.
City TV?
You
can
it's on the
switch
set.
to camera mode. The good thing is you brought the real thing.
Yeah, but it's on the set of drawings, so I don't know where it went. It should be in there. Okay, anyway, yeah, that's just a replication of the slide that.
You can zoom in, City TV?
Yeah. And one thing I do want to bring to your attention, the little fixture down on the right of the four fixture configurations there, up in the left-hand corner of this. We have confirmed we can get that, and it does meet that lighting pattern that we showed you on the plan. And it will tuck itself in between the columns right at the surface of the new platform so that it's not a tripping hazard and can give the light that we need to get to the door. The other concern last time was the historic light lanterns on each side of the door, which are shown on this drawing. And they show up on another sheet somewhere. I don't know where these are. Anyway, there was concern. We do need to make those meet the new code. So they're going to have to be rebuilt or completely duplicated in order to do that. And the reason for that is, see the top little piece there? There's a little black above the crown. Yeah, right there. That may need to increase by a ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch because there's a ballast that has, when they do lead lighting, you have to get a little ballast in there. So because of that, we may have to recreate this entire fixture, although my experience at the Santa Barbara Airport when the big chandelier that's in the main lobby of the airport was given to the city or loaned permanently to the city, we found a local concern that actually is able to do that. They actually were able to make the areas available for the ballast that's required and replace all the glass that was broken. So there is at least that company that's here in town, but we also, the electrical engineers, found a Midwest company that's willing to try to duplicate this or take this fixture and then rebuild it accordingly. So that'll be sorted out as we get into the construction phase. And I think that's it, if we don't have any other drawings.
Pardon my brief interruption, through the chair to the rest of the commission and the applicant team. It looks like that material board was included in your online submittal, but the file was corrupted and was preventing us from uploading it online, so we pulled it. Thank you for bringing in a hard copy. So that we can confirm that that is the material board that was uploaded to the original plan set, and you can proceed with approval.
Thank you.
And that's why you bring in the paper.
Yeah. Always back up things. We got a whole roll of the drawings just to back it up.
All right.
Anyway, I think that,
Does that complete your
I
presentation?
think that addresses everything of the two items that were of concern on the motion that was made last time. You might want to
Okay.
bring that back up just so we know we addressed it, but I think we did.
All right. Okay, great. If that, yeah, I think that you did. You covered the things. And well, I'm sure there'll be, if there's questions, you can answer them. Okay, so if that completes your presentation, we will open public comment.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I do have one speaker slip, and that is for Suzanne Michaud. You can come up and speak at this time. And if anyone else would like to speak, they can fill out a speaker slip and bring it up to me. Okay.
Good afternoon. I've been a member of St. Barbara's Parish at the Old Mission for nearly 40 years, which I've learned is about as long as this accessibility ramp has been discussed. It's long overdue and obviously needed by those who worship at the mission on a weekly basis, as well as those who visit. The steps up to the mission doors are steep and uneven, making it difficult for many older adults to manage getting to the front door, including this one, who has 2 new knees. So I believe this ramp will be of great benefit to many people, not just those who rely on a walker or a wheelchair. I myself have seen the confusion when people come up to the mission expecting to see a ramp and one does not exist for them. I've also seen many parishioners in their older years no longer able to access the mission and start going to other Catholic churches in the area that are more accessible. And I know that those who want to attend Mass at the Old Mission have quite a long journey to get there through the corridors and the back hallways to come into a side door of the mission. And it takes some time and effort to do that. So I'm very pleased to be here today to support this project. It's really being put in an area that's very rarely used or accessed by people. So I think it's in a perfect position to the side of the mission and will be a wonderful addition to make the front of the Queen of the Missions more accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't currently have any other speaker slips. We do still have one participant online. If they would like to speak on this item, they can raise their hand at this time to speak. But I'm not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll give it back to you.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission for any questions. Questions?
I have a question for the landscape architect. I don't see that you're using a western redbud in this plan, even though there's one on the breakdown of your plant list. It's a beautiful tree, you know. And I would like to see it there, but if it's not there, it's not there.
Is this on? Bob Cunningham?
Yeah,
May we have the planting plan?
there, yeah.
Can we enlarge it? Okay, go over to the right, the plan itself. Okay. Okay, you see to the right-hand side there of Mr. Lenvik, I think it says CC, uppercase, lowercase.
Yeah.
That's the redbud.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a beautiful tree.
Nice.
Beautiful tree. It was coded as CW, so that's why I didn't pick up. We're all,
I don't do the drawing anymore.
yeah. We all aim for perfection, right? But seldom ever get there.
All right. Other questions? Vice
Mr.
Chair
Chair,
Uli.
I have a question about the detail for the stone wall. So if you could navigate to your detail sheet and zero in on the little stone wall, I think it was at the bottom. Yeah. Zoom in there so we can read the writing. While you're, it gets a little touchy after a while. I think you can actually touch it too. You can just drag the screen.
No, but then it just selects.
Yeah, well. So what I'm curious about, the pointing on the existing walls is not perfect.
Correct.
It's imperfection, really. I didn't see a note where you're asking the stonemason to copy that imperfect detail. I had this case at the courthouse when we did the ramp. They wanted to make their pointing smooth and clean, and it took me forever to tell them, no, I want you to be sloppy and messy.
I think we have a general note somewhere on the drawings that we do say that in general. We want the pattern to match the pattern on the towers.
So the grouting line.
Yeah, it may not say grouting and points specifically, which I guess we could add part of that note. But I do think we have a note to that effect somewhere. I just don't remember where it is.
I think to be clear, you'd want to put it on that detail.
Okay.
I assume the secret.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
The secret will be having contractors, laborers, who are very much attuned to what is there now and respect to what's there now. I mean, that's the key to it.
So,
or masons who may have had a couple of beers during lunch, because that's probably what happened.
It's a Friday
when the place was
afternoon
being
job.
built in the first place.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair, to your point, the mission, based on recommendations, has already engaged a reputable general contractor who will do this job, Shipper Construction. And so we've asked specifically for certain masons, and I've already met with him on site, as I mentioned, gone over those kind of discussions. The same goes with the wrought iron work, because that's really a specialty, and particularly because we're asking them to modify and match the existing railings. One of the railings needs to modify it a little bit at the end, that little railing that's coming down from the Mission Gate. The cemetery gate has to be modified. So we wanted specific expertise and craftsmanship that will get us exactly what we want. So this will, unlike a public project, this is not public bid. We get to make choices.
Question about the lighting. Can you pull that light up again, the light fixture you had? So can you, on the two ones in the front, can you tell me what the reasoning for replacing them potentially, or for?
Because the lighting level that we're trying to achieve per this diagram needs that light right to each side of the door to get the calculations to work correctly. And in order to do that, you have to refit those lights with lead lighting that isn't there now. And so we've got to modify those fixtures to make that work, to get the light level that's required on that diagram.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
We had to do the same thing at the courthouse, and it's getting that transformer to be hidden somewhere in the fixture, typically in the crown, but you might have to make the crown a little taller to
Yeah,
hide.
that's why I said it's like maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch. We're going to have to redo that little piece on the top to hide this thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, great. All right, any other questions? All right, well, it's sounding like it's in good shape. Does anyone want to, it's sounding like we're looking for project design approval and final approval are requested. Is there anything that's anyone's not ready to make final approval on?
I think it's ready. I don't know. You want to make the motion or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Are we ready?
Any other discussion? Seeming like
What about
everyone's
comments?
happy with it.
My only comment is that it's a great solution. I think we've said this before, that it's a clever way to integrate ADA accessibility into basically an iconic landmark in such a way that you really don't see it, which is the whole point. So, yeah,
I have
fantastic.
a comment, and in part it follows up on the public comment that we received, but I have ADA issues are important, and I have personal experience with that. So what I wanted to say is that for all the glories, if you made a list of all the glory of traditional architecture and all the things we love about our cultural treasures, steps are usually not on those lists. They didn't do them well. And so it's important because the mission is so important to realize that the purpose of historic preservation boards like this is not to freeze the building, not to stop time, but to preserve and protect what is historically and culturally significant and ensure that the necessary changes do not damage irreparably what is historically and culturally significant. And this project doesn't. They do it well. So that's why I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, well, with that.
Well said.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we do project design approval and final approval for the 201 Laguna Street.
All right. Would someone like to second that?
Second.
All right. Commissioner Drury, second it. All right, under discussion, any further?
You'll
Oh,
have to make
project compatibility findings, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the design of the project is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of this project. The design of the project is compatible with the desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of this very particular neighborhood. The size, mass, bulk, height, and scale of the project is appropriate for its location and again for the neighborhood. The design of this project is appropriately sensitive to the adjacent federal, state, and city landmarks and other nearby designated historic resources, including city structures of merits, site, or natural features. The project does not, the design of the project responds appropriately to established scenic public vistas. It does not block public views. And the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and attention to landscaping.
All right, minor alterations to historic resource findings?
These exterior alterations are being made primarily for and will substantially advance restoration of the historic resource to its original appearance. It does not detract from its original appearance. These alterations are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards.
All right.
That's a lot.
With all that, the seconder
fine with that.
agrees?
Yep.
All right, then let's have any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll begin with Commissioner Lenvick,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair Uli,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chair. After 40 years, we're a little closer, but we've probably got another 2 or 3 months of
Yeah.
department stuff.
Just start breaking ground.
Well, you,
Whatever. Well, we got to go find the rest of the money.
you have made a significant contribution to the preservation of the landmark.
Yes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for that.
Thank you.
And then I also need to announce that it's a 10-day appeal process to City Council for anyone who doesn't like access to historic landmarks. All right, and with that, meeting adjourned.